A lot of people in sort of pop culture thinking that this could be the end.
Yeah, so the dip that you're talking about is actually nothing new for Bitcoin. As far as percentage terms go, if we look at it historically, we've seen these types of pullbacks before.
There we go.
What's going on?
Good morning.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good evening. Albert, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Matt? Hey, Marty.
Good. I think I might have to. This would be the worst thing if I have to reboot my modem because I'm kind of glitching here already early in the morning, and I'm already having an issue, I think, with the router. We'll work through it. I'm seeing a little bit of a delay and a lag. If you want to get in on this, the link is there. You can share it out, be part of the Quantum family, and get in on the conversation and ask the advisor. Mr. Greenspan, how are you, sir?
I'm doing amazing, man. Thanks for asking. It's a good day. Shit's going well. No complaints. Happy with the market today. Making a few good trades. Dogecoin to the moon, all that. And happy April Fools.
No pranks.
Right.
Have you ever been pranked before? Have you ever fallen? Have you been had by an April Fool's prank?
Never, man. Never. I've gotten other people many times. Nobody's ever gotten me. We ran one on Doug earlier today. I don't know if you saw it. We told him that an ex-employee had hacked their social media accounts for Quantum Expeditions. Doug didn't go for it. Doug was like, "It's April."
Harsh.
Like, Oz, even after Doug said it's April Fool's, Oz was like, "Yeah, we gotta get it. We're gonna go break his legs." I'm like, okay, calm down there, Mister.
There's Hernan. What about you, Albert? Have you ever been had by an April Fool's prank?
Hello.
Maybe
everyone.
a while ago. I don't quite remember. Probably I was, but maybe a while ago. I mean, it was like maybe, I don't know, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But I don't remember the details. But I tell you this, maybe market action today could be a Fool's Day. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
It could be like a fluke. Maybe that's deceiving in terms of, like, a lot of people think maybe it's a bottom and maybe it's not. We'll see.
Hernan, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. April Fools here in the States. Have you ever been had by an April Fool's prank as we start this live stream off here?
Oh man, I was fooled today.
Oh, what happened?
I just saw a report, Nix, that Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, was taken out. And I was asking, like, wait, is this confirmed? And I actually bought it for a few minutes.
I saw that post as well, but because I'm a contributor to community notes, the post came with, "There's a proposed community note on this. Go ahead and rate the community note." So I was like, okay, that's got to be an April Fool's Day joke.
Well, and I think the Bears got pretty tricked down there with that reason, like dump and bump. If you want to share my screen, Matt, I'll just give us a look into the recent Bitcoin price action, which I think took everyone by surprise. I'll tell you what, I started seeing. Yeah, do you see my screen?
Yeah, I got it.
So as you can see, Bitcoin has been super strong today. Now, what happened is that near the bottom, right near this 81K mark, like, it was, things look pretty gloom and doom. If you see, there was only doing like lower highs, lower lows. It was all a depression phase. Now, bulls stepped in here, but it was still unsure. It was kind of a dead cat bounce. Now look at the price action today and the volume that's coming in, right? We can see that we had this kind of semi dump earlier today, and then I was waiting. So I didn't get in because I was waiting actually for this order block down here. I say, okay, the bulls came in here, it'll probably retest it. But then I figured out that there was this sneaky order block in here, and look at what happened as soon as Bitcoin just tapped into it. The 22,500 price, it just shot up. And what I'm thinking right now is that there must be a ton of bears and a ton of shorters trapped into shorts from way down here that might be now underwater. And this can lead to a potential very, very hard short squeeze. And if the bulls decide to step in here, I don't see this thing stopping until that 88, even 89K region and retesting that resistance. If that happens, we might even see a short squeeze triggering a ton of stops and just pushing the price up to that 90K, 92K region, which would be at, you see the price jump, it would signify like a 10K Bitcoin jump in just a few days. And I think that has the power to trigger new potential very bullish Q2. Those are my takes on the market right now.
Yeah,
Coming in hot and
agree.
fresh.
And I also, especially, I posted on Twitter a chart, with the hourly candles, and you could just see like the green hammer with the huge wick down, and the green hammer with the huge wick up in succession. Is like Bitcoin is fully feeling April Fool's Day today, so it's trying to fool the bulls and the bears simultaneously, trying to fool everybody, and I guess that makes a lot of sense with the Trump D-Day coming out tomorrow, and a lot of
I think it might be
uncertainty.
priced in. What do you think, Mati? I think that those news of the tariffs might be already priced in, and I think we are in. We might, what we might see is actually a reversal, whereas everybody knows about the tariffs, and then come tomorrow, my thoughts right now on seeing the price action is that what we might see from the markets, it's like, oh, it's not that bad. Like we'll figure things out, and then the markets might actually even reverse and pump.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Actually, a little bit. My view is a bit nuanced. So actually, what's been priced in is the uncertainty, right? And markets hate uncertainty. And if we knew what Trump was going to do tomorrow, then that could have been priced in. But but nobody knows. So what's being priced in is the uncertainty. And therefore, the only thing that's left to happen now is the revelation of what's actually happening. And then the markets can really price in the tariffs, so to speak. Or at least try to, because obviously there's a lot of moving parts, as we discussed in this stream last week. It's not just the tariffs. There's a lot of other stuff going on as well. So, we'll jury's out. Volatility abounds. I remain completely optimistic about everything that's market related, about crypto, and all of that good stuff. I think that we're literally headed to the moon right now.
Why are you optimistic, Marty? What's the bull case for you?
Yeah. So number one is deregulation and smaller government, right? We've seen this working in Argentina. Doug and Nick and I met a guy who actually he's from Texas, but he was visiting Argentina at the moment, and we were on a call with him yesterday. He's like, I had to see it, firsthand. And what he reported was that everybody loves Javier Milei. He's literally brought inflation down from 1,000% annually to 20%. You can see the whiteboards in the restaurants where people used to be updating, but they haven't been updated in a couple of weeks, right? And businesses are booming, and there's construction everywhere, and there's new businesses everywhere. And so these formulas, I mean, there's not like Javier Milei invented the wheel or something. I mean, these are the type of things that, economists like Milton Friedman and Hayek and all of those good people have been preaching for a very long time. And this is what the Trump promise was. And this is going to happen now in the United States. Yes, there'll be pain at first, as there was in Argentina. It took them a year until the numbers became astonishingly clear. And the United States is a lot more, obviously a lot more complicated than Argentina. It's like a big giant Jenga tower. You don't want to just like start pulling blocks willy nilly because the whole thing could collapse. So yeah, we'll be off to a rough start for certain. However, these type of policies are proven to be very, very positive. If you have less government intervention in day-to-day affairs, and you have smaller government sucking less resources out of the system, you have a nation of innovators in the United States, and basically that will within the next few years be replicated globally. So every other nation on the planet is going to become jealous of the United States' success. They're going to see that these policies work, and they're going to want less government too. And then,
do you think that includes Europe?
yes, Europe has a very, very strong bureaucracy, and I think that'll be very difficult to pick apart. However, democracy is structured in such a way that at the end of the day, you have to please the constituents, and if all the constituents want are people who are in favor of less government, right? Certainly, that they can play the game for a while where they put up two phony candidates, right? And then you have to choose between them. They can play that for a while, but at some point there will arise a candidate who gets up and says, "Okay, we're gonna tear down the government and lower your taxes," and they'll be voted in very, very easily. So you take that and then you couple it with emerging technologies. Okay, AI has made me about 10 times more productive in my day-to-day life, and I know for a fact, Hernan, for you as well, probably 20x, and Albert, I'm sure as well. Matt, I don't know how much AI you're using, but
None. I use zero.
definitely seen your articles that are coming out. Amazing content. And like it's
Matt, you could use your voice and actually sell it for a hefty price to Hagen and all these AI agent platforms. You can make a killing, man. I mean,
I'll have you be my agent. How about that? We'll make a deal.
okay.
sell Matt Case's voice to Sam Altman. Yeah, and in any case, that is, imagine that 10x, 20x impact on the global GDP over the next 5 years, right? And then, imagine that we multiply it by, with blockchain technology and quantum computing, which will very soon be something that's consumer friendly and unleash massive supercomputer energy, and people will be able to do things that we can only dream of now with technology, even though we think that we're so advanced, compared to 100 years ago. You haven't seen anything yet compared to what's coming in the next 5 to 10 years. Okay, so take the political landscape and the governmental backdrop and apply the new technologies, and you have to understand that we're headed into a golden age. We're literally headed into a place where there's no return, and we're going to be more prosperous than any time frame in the history of the globe. So yeah, you can quote me on that.
Yeah, I'd like to see where we end up with all these like geopolitical tensions, and as well with the kind of the WEF and the kind of the World Economic Forum's efforts, and kind of this globalist Soros type agenda of that was gaining traction, I think, until I guess Trump took power. If we can shift that, I definitely agree with your view, but I think there's a lot of headwinds ahead of us if we want to really overcome those forces. And what I'm saying is that this must not be this must be like a new trajectory and not just a 4-year term when it comes to what we are seeing in the market. Do you guys agree?
I think what Trump is doing, I think that's gonna. I don't think it's just a small little tactic. It seems like he wants to reshape global
No,
economy.
it's a
I
big
think
plan.
that's going to be a permanent.
Yeah, it's a big plan.
Yeah,
The question is,
I think
will it
it's
die
going to
out?
be a
If it
permanent
gets-
thing. I don't see how it could be dismantled
Yeah,
easily.
I hope not.
Guys, we got a really fun show today. I will be revealing the true identity of Satoshi Nakamoto after
Oh,
thorough
God.
research by the end of the show. I know Matt's got a lot planned as well. And for anybody who is part of the quantum economics community, you have a link to join the live stream. So please go ahead and
Is
join
that
the
a mix? Where are we sharing this? Wait.
and then on all we're streaming live right now on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So anybody on any platform should be able to comment, and we'll be able to see your comments on the screen here. So go ahead and ask a question, give your opinion. Is how we do it.
Let me share it all over. Yeah. I am cautiously. I'm very curious about the identity of Satoshi Nakamoto, Matty. I don't know how did you come up with that data? It was top secret.
I will show the data. I have no qualms. I'm as
Proof
certain
of
of
work.
this. I am as certain of this as I've been certain of many things in my career, which ended up extremely true. I've never had this much conviction and been wrong in my entire life.
Yeah, and the question becomes: Do we want to know our heroes?
That is the question I asked Twitter. Twitter said, okay, I put a Twitter poll out a few hours ago. It says, okay, should I hold on? Let me share my screen.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah. Should I reveal the true identity of Satoshi Nakamoto in today's Quantum Insights live stream? I will abide by the outcome of the poll. 53.4% say, yes, we want to know. Less than 30% say, let it remain a secret. So literally, the crowd has spoken. So I'm into it. I'm into it, and I'll show you the data as well.
All right. Well, I definitely hope it's not Craig Wright.
I think we put that one. That would be yeah.
No, Craig Wright is a fraud.
Oh,
That
great.
is- yeah, literally 0% chance of Craig Wright. That's in the data as well. 0%.
Yeah, that's good.
Matt, what else we got? What else we got for today?
Lots of big stuff. I was up early this morning. Maybe it was late for you in the evening, but boy, the big news today I want to get into, especially when I talk about Bitcoin mining, was the call this morning from the Hut 8 team and American Bitcoin with Eric Trump on the call. I've got some audio from that, and I'll share some notes that I thought were really insightful and some analysis. So let me just pull that up here for you. Okay, so with that being said, we had a big call this morning. The team from Hut 8, along with the folks over there, American Bitcoin, kind of talking about the whole deal. And this is a very, very big deal. Talking about how they're going to structure the company overall. And some of these were really insightful when we're talking about how the company will be structured. And this is something that we've talked about a lot there at Quantum Expeditions, and being asset light or infrastructure heavy, all these types of things. And here's some of the analysis and insight that I was able to take away.
So Hut 8 are the ones, just to be clear, they're the ones that teamed up with the Trump sons.
Yes, Eric Trump is the chief strategy officer.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes. So here's them talking about just the whole kind of asset structure and the way they kind of are configuring American Bitcoin.
American Bitcoin will also be super SG&A light. They'll be able to run really lean, be able to manage through volatility, meanwhile be able to tap into the resources of a fully vertically integrated and large scope horizontally of skill sets, services like build out, engineering, software, data science. I mean, you guys know about our reactor, our curtailment software, our operator. And so all of that will be fully at the disposal of American Bitcoin, meanwhile being able to run an SG light model. And then lastly, assured services agreement, even back office things like accounting and legal, being able to support a lot of those functions. Because I think what makes a great mining company is the ability to be the lowest cost operator and producer of Bitcoin, meanwhile having the balance sheet and the economic structures to manage.
Yeah, so it cuts off a little bit right there, but you hear them just kind of, again, talking about what makes a profitable Bitcoin company. And I hear a lot of those same talking points in our calls, Monty Greenspan with you and Doug Hardwick and Oz Sultan. So I'm really encouraged about that. And then when we're talking about just the development, what's in the pipeline and just what they have up their sleeve and what they're looking at between Hut and where American Bitcoin is going to go. Some interesting comments here. Check this out.
I think when we think about kind of the assets that we've been talking about, so part of those are financing opportunities, right? As they've thought about the strategy and the financing and the people that have shown interest to get involved and to kind of support the brand. So you'll see that as fuel to pushing the phases that we've brought up and talked through. The other thing is obviously as we continue to build and grow these assets, Hut 8 has a very deep development pipeline of near-term and long-term opportunities, and we can bring the development opportunities that they've seen into that fold. And so even if we use one of our sites, but that may be replaced with one of their development opportunities. So that's a broad theme. If you think about kind of interesting opportunities from a data center powered land perspective, financing opportunities, American Bitcoin is going to be raising capital to scale and to grow. And this is kind of the beauty behind this structure is Hut 8 can raise capital for infrastructure. American Bitcoin can raise capital for Bitcoin proxy, and it gives shareholders the maximum exposure in return on the asset class that they truly want to invest.
All right. So then the one question that we've talked a lot about on the Quantum Expedition Spaces that we do Monday Night Bitcoin, or whether it's with you, Marty, on the Quantum Spaces, is when it comes to the mining, the tariffs, which we know are going to be happening tomorrow. They specifically asked Eric Trump on the call this morning, what about the tariffs? What about Bitmain? What does that mean for you? Because we know Hut 8 has an exclusive deal with Bitmain. They've got these brand new ASICs. They're bringing them online. This is part of the deal. And here's what Eric Trump had to say in addressing that specific issue regarding
as you've all known, we've worked with Bitmain, MicroBT, Canaan, which are kind of the leading manufacturers within the sector. And then you have new entrants like Block, like Ardine. And so we've worked with all of them, know them all really well, have everyone's miners tested in our R&D facilities, is not fully deployed across the sites. As we've looked at manufacturers that are not in the U.S., and that are more global, they have manufacturing facilities. For example, the Bitmain machines that we have coming in Malaysia, in Thailand, in other places around Southeast Asia. And so we've been very sensitive to what does that look like from an import regulatory perspective? What does that look like for these companies and their future ambitions to manufacture in the U.S.? As you may know, MicroBT, which is also kind of similar structure as Bitmain, company in China, and I think both of them are in Singapore now. They have manufacturing facilities in Southeast Asia, but MicroBT also started manufacturing machines in the U.S. as well, and I know Bitmain is doing the same. And so, look, we have active dialogues with them in regards to their supply chains, in regards to as we think about kind of macro trade dynamics and how do we ensure that we have the ability to grow with not just one, but with all of the counterparties in a way that drives the most value to the shareholders of American Bitcoin and allows us to grow in the most risk-adjusted fashion.
I'm not saying anything substantive here. This is all fluff. That
All
was
right.
a very politician answer.
Well, what do you expect? He's a politician's son. But I think the final comment, this was the one that I really made me take note, and I had to retweet this as well. Asher, in some of the closing comments here, just kind of putting it in perspective when they look at the overall operation from Hut and American Bitcoin, how does he look at it? And his comment here, I think, was really, really interesting. Listen to what he had to say.
So I think when I tell everybody, look, our vision long term is to be an energy infrastructure platform that sits at that intersection between power and technology, I feel like I'm Jeff Bezos saying we're going to sell more than books back in the day, and people are laughing, saying you're freaking crazy. That's not possible. And so when we think about what Hut 8 is aiming to become, it's truly to build an energy infrastructure platform. We don't see our business as Bitcoin versus AI. We see our business as power layer, digital infrastructure layer. We can build lower redundant data centers, higher redundant data centers. We'll have a different type of customer on the other end, a different type of pricing because it's a different type of upfront CapEx cost, and then compute. And GPUs and ASICs have a similar return profile. You want a much faster payback on your investments because the depreciation of the chips you have to account for and the volatility of the actual.
Yeah, so
it makes sense. Nothing groundbreaking here. This is what every large Bitcoin mining company has been saying over the last 2 years, honestly. It does sound a lot cooler coming from Eric Trump. I'll give you that.
Well, I think the issue, though, I mean, the fact that that is an issue when you're talking about tariffs and chips and the fact that where are you going to get this hardware? And I think especially if you're a mining company and you're upgrading your fleet and you're having to bring on new hardware, that's going to be a big capex, right? And that's why I think companies like Quantum Expeditions, like what Bob is doing at Barefoot, and there's lots of other smaller solo miners that are taking a whole different avenue and going off grid and then able to repurpose and extend the life of some of these older mining hardware and machines and still extract profit out of them. So I think there's a whole different narrative there that we see the big pubcos going this way and we're seeing independent miners kind of go this way, and there's a separation there.
I have to agree with you there. Obviously, yeah, what we're doing at Quantum Expeditions, we're using older machines, so it doesn't really. I mean, our goal here by going off grid is to reduce our power costs to the point where we can run very old machines quite profitably, and therefore we don't have to spend a lot of money on the latest tech, which is just going to depreciate in value over the next few years, anyways.
And you heard Asher say that. That's exactly what he said.
Yeah, and I think that in dealing with. And I think I've expressed publicly already my frustration with Bitmain and ordering miners from China. First of all, the process is very nerve-wracking because you can't, when you send large amounts of money to China, you don't have any guarantees that you're going to get the product back, right? Because if they decide to screw you over, you're done. There's no recourse. You can't go, and a U.S. company cannot sue a Chinese company. So there's that. But further to that, we had 6 machines that were DOA, or dead on arrival, and we went to claim the warranty on them, and it's been over a year since we sent them in, and they're just they still haven't gotten back to us. Like they're good morning, John. Just dealing with their customer service at Bitmain has given me a few gray hairs, at least. And so I think that there is place in this market for American-made ASICs. Is it going to be worthwhile for an American company rather than just paying the 25% tariffs? I'm not entirely certain, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, well, remember that we still have, Elon Musk, and there's a lot of innovation coming out of the US. I do believe that the need breeds innovation, and we've seen this in our country, in Israel. That's why we've become startup nation, such a small country with no oil, natural resources of anything or any other particular that are, brain cells. So that forced us into being a very innovative country. I think with the tariffs and with the need for not only ASIC miners, but think about the AI. Like once AI does become ubiquitous and normal people start using it on their everyday lives and demanding it just as they demand more battery for their iPhone, like there's not going to be enough compute to serve all of the AI requests happening globally, nor in the US. So think about that for a minute, and I think that the solutions for both, and that might come in the form of quantum computing, but that may also come in the form of new forms of energy. And I think that is something that we're also going to see happen. And it kind of, we don't have it yet, but it's like it's going to come. And I think Elon Musk mentioned it once, like there's not going to be like a resource constraint like forever. This is not going to be like we have in the history of humankind, we have found new sources of energy, new sources of capital, new sources of how to produce goods, of more efficiency, of always, serving the needs of humanity. So I think this will be no exception. We just need to figure out how this is going to happen.
Yeah.
I actually have more of a question than my opinion, and I'm curious because we keep hearing about these Bitcoin miners that are moving into AI, and they're moving into technically whatever's the most profitable, I guess, in general. What does that mean exactly? Like, and I mean it isn't just buying a machine. Is it not like, you know, massive investment in massive facilities that have machines? Like, is this not like, are we not talking about multi-billion-dollar build outs for what they're saying to be true?
Well, I think it depends. If you want to raise like anyone wants to start mining, you have those new NVIDIA machines that are super powerful and very compact. But if the US wants to become a mining powerhouse and compete with China, yes, that's a multi-deca-billion-dollar investment into not only new mining rigs but new power sources, just like Bukele did in El Salvador with the volcanic power grid. There's something like that needs to happen in order for the US to be competitive with all this cheap energy and cheap miners and cheap computing power that's coming out of China and other places.
I mean,
I do agree. I think we're going to be
yeah.
energy constrained. I think there's an energy constraint, a much bigger constraint on energy versus chip
and compute
production.
compute as well.
Well, and the client, for it to be a profitable business, though, the clients are huge clients that couldn't do it themselves, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense. I'm not going to buy a bunch of boxes, put them in a data center here, and all of a sudden, Amazon's going to hire me to outsource their compute. It's like this seems to me like this is a massive investment, and it's not just like, oh, flip the switch from Bitcoin mining into AI. Like it seems like there's a whole lot more here involved, and like only the biggest players are really going to benefit from that, right?
I mean, potentially, with DeepSeek, I think you could potentially run models. And again, I think there's like LLMs versus, training versus inference. So technically on the inference side, you can run a lower, you may not need necessarily as powerful of compute, but you still need a lot of compute in order to run inference. So instead of running necessarily like these big data centers that Google and AWS and Meta can build, you could potentially run smaller data centers and rent out your compute for inference. That I could see a model work out. So it does open an opportunity for inference side to potentially run ASICs for inference. But again, I think it's to be seen in terms of how it's done. And I don't think today you need to be as big as Meta, Google, and AWS to take advantage of that.
Isn't there a blockchain project that tokenized data storage and all that kind of stuff? Maybe
There's Arweave, there's Filecoin, there's also the whole DeepIn narrative is decentralizing computing power. You have a Pinlink, you have
Flux.
a lot of a lot of projects that have tried to in the past, but they have not yet achieved the sustainability and the latency and accessibility that would make them competitive to Google Cloud, Amazon, AWS, and Azure. So that hasn't yet become ubiquitous. But listen, that was last cycle. The innovations that are coming in on this cycle 3 years from then, they might just give AWS and Google Cloud and Azure a run for their money. I don't know.
I'd be into it. I'd love to see kind of a some business plan is, for if Quantum Expeditions were to set up some sort of a data center to take advantage of those type of protocols.
Yeah.
What that might look like on paper and what the return on investment could potentially be. But the other side of that is, obviously none of these, obviously, like whenever you're creating a marketplace, you always have the chicken and egg problem, right? You got to have the buyers and the sellers at the same place at the same time. And that's why it's so difficult to create a marketplace. And that's why many who try don't do so well. Which is why we'd really need to focus on, some of those protocols that have been doing well and that are monetizing, figuring out how to monetize and go to market and attract new customers and are ready to scale up. And in that case, it would be an investment into those protocols. We got some questions coming in, Matt.
Yeah, we have two. Is the bottom in yet for Bitcoin from Kazlar?
Let's see here. Let's see. First question.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
So I can share the chart and try to assess that. Nobody knows where the bottom is, but I can take a wild guess.
Let's let me pull up your screen here. Hold on one sec. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just do a zoom in analysis, right? Because we are seeing a pump. And when we do see this strong kind of pumps, wait, did you guys see my screen?
There it is. Yep.
Oh, no, that's I think that's Maddie's screen. Is that?
Oh.
Do you see my screen in the?
Oh, there it is. Yes, sorry, wrong one. There we go.
Yeah.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah. By the way, guys, I paint my candles white and blue so that they don't automatically influence. When you see green and red, you're like subliminally bullish, even if you so it's harder to be objective. So guys, well, let's draw our levels, right? What do we want to see? We always remain bullish unless we start testing out this previous bull market high at around 69. Until then, the high time frame is bullish. Now, what probably Skazlar wants to know is, have we seen the bottom? Like, is this the bottom? Because we're seeing a huge pump today. But remember, we're not out of the wood yet. We are still in a very pronounced downtrend on a daily. So ever since we broke that 90 level, look at this, guys. We have not yet broken this. And let me just clear out all drawings so that I'm gonna make just one line that's gonna make it much clearer for anyone who wants to know. This level over here has not yet been broken, and you can even see how respected it's been. Wait, let's draw it again without the levels. You see how violently it has been respected, even with the last attempt at overcoming this, right? So you can even see that pump into there, how it's ramming its head onto this level, right? Until then, this is still until the 86,500 breaking with confidence. I would not sign in of a bottom yet. Now, but we definitely, if this is still a bull market, which I do believe we are in, we can still see a major dump or a surprise, especially with the news this week, and we can still see a push down and like a major dump into the 70 to 72,000, and then we can start rallying. Now, if you're asking about the general market, at this lows, remember, guys, it's been a brutal downtrend since January. So we've have all Q1, we've just been being battered and shattered, and all our shit coins went to, have been obliterated. So if we're still in a bull market, I would expect a Q2 to be bullish. Now, even if we are bullish, we will not be out of the woods until we can reclaim this critical level of 95K where we broke down. If we manage to reclaim this and turn this into support, then we're off to new all-time highs, and 100K, 150K is bearish. But until then, you have to respect this major downtrend, which suggests that even with today's mega pump, we can still come down and revisit lower lows. And if Bitcoin drops another 10K from here, I cannot imagine like our archons can get obliterated. So I don't think
I'm gonna tell you something right now, Hernan. If Bitcoin drops another 10K, I'm selling a kidney. Okay, that's what's happening. I'm selling a kidney.
You still have a kidney left? Jeez,
I do.
I'm happy to expand on Hernan's technical analysis if you'll allow me to share my screen here.
For sure.
We have, and I posted it just yesterday. We have a looming death cross. So literally, death cross is the mother of all bearish indicators, and basically, it's when the 50-day moving average drops below the 200-day moving average. Are you able to bring my screen up here, Matt?
Yep, right there. Hold on.
And you can see
but it's also known to be a lagging indicator, don't you think, Matty?
Hold on. The blue line here is the 200-day moving average, and the red line is the 50-day. You can see that they're on a collision course. I mean, it's going to happen at some point. The line that Hernan drew, I think, is extremely relevant. However, we will, just by nature of moving forward, even if we don't go up or down, this line will be eventually broken unless we see a major dump. What I think is a more pertinent line right now is the ultimate level of support, which, as we've seen throughout the Bitcoin cycles, the previous all-time high, which ends up coming in and acting as a support, which was once resistance and now is a support level. That's at around $74,000 per coin. However, what I'm going to say is, first of all, that death cross doesn't always mean bad news. Here is a classic example of a death cross that, yeah, it meant that the price was languished for a while, but then we had the opposite of a death cross, which is a golden cross, which did lead to the Trump election and all that ensued afterward. However, and then because of Nash's equilibrium, if it's known that the bottom will be 74K, nobody's going to really wait for the 74K. Rather, they'll say, okay, 74K ish, and they'll buy just before that because they don't want to miss their price.
So it's going to get front run for sure.
So my base case is that the bottom is definitely in. I'm fairly certain of that. About 80% conviction here. Not nearly as certain as I am of the identity of Satoshi Nakamoto.
Which we still are going to get to here later on in the live stream today.
Yes, sir. We got some swag to give away as well. We announced a swag giveaway. I don't know if today is the best time. Maybe we should wait for the Thursday spaces. What do you think,
Yeah,
Matt?
because it feels like it might be an April Fool's joke, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And because the live stream doesn't allow us to have guests on as easily, which is much
That's true.
better for a giveaway.
And that's part of the live stream, though, is that we want you to be part of our community and be part of the quantum family and get that quantum domain, and you can be part of this conversation that transcends the time zones around the world and across the web. And it's great to be part of this. We get awesome folks like John from Lunar Crush and Hernan and Albert in here, and we just kind of chop it up, and it's like iron sharpening iron. You know what I mean?
That's right. So visit qe.finance. You'll see all the details about quantum economics there, how to join the community, and how to be a part of it. We're I just got off the phone with our devs. We're supercharging development of the quantum economics website, which will be used as basically a startup foundry, so like a place to create new projects. And we've got builders and founders, CEOs and board members. We've got investors. We've got obviously some of the best content creators in the space, writers and researchers, etc. So geniuses as far as consulting and marketing, just about every aspect that you could ever ask for a wholesome business. We've got all the talent in house, so we can, if you got an idea, you want to make something, you want to grab people to run with you, this is a good place for it.
Yeah. Since we're just really quick, before I want to get to John here and get some data and metrics, what you're looking at Lunar Crush. But before we do, just a really last quick plug for Quantum Expeditions. Check this out.
The future of energy and the future of money are merging, and Quantum Expeditions is leading the way. We tap into stranded energy, flared natural gas from oil wells in West Texas, and off-grid power to mine Bitcoin efficiently, reducing carbon emissions while turning wasted energy into profit. This isn't just mining, it's sustainability, innovation, and higher returns for our investors. Join us at Quantum Expeditions, where energy meets opportunity. Spots are filling fast. Secure your investment before the April 30th deadline and be part of the future of Bitcoin mining. Don't miss out. Higher profits, lower emissions, and real innovation. The future is here. Are you in?
Deadline fast approaching.
Nice.
There you go. Yeah. John over there at Lunar Crush, I mean, the guy has access to some of the most freshest data on the block. What is the one thing in the last week that we've had a chance to connect with you that has really stood out? I always want to get like the big thing that comes across your radar, because you have a front row seat and access to data that a lot of folks don't.
Let me share my screen, and I'll tell you there's a few things. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, we got it.
So one thing, I mean, Mati said, I think there's an 80% chance of a bottom here, and I think one of the things that we look at is, how many people are talking about Bitcoin, relatively, how much is it? Like last week, I remember saying that Bitcoin alone had more social activity than the entire United States stock market. That was true. Today, it's about the same, roughly speaking, which is still a lot. That being said, it's down a lot, right? So social activity around these financial sectors is just down. When the price is moving down on a lot of these assets, it doesn't matter which asset, we tend to see people talk less about it. When price goes up, you tend to see more. This is one example. I think one thing to point out with Bitcoin that's really interesting is, you might remember last year where we were all sitting here frustrated. Why isn't Bitcoin moving? Why isn't Bitcoin moving? Is it going to go lower? Is it going to go lower? Everyone's drawing lines on charts that, it could go to 30, could go to 10. We all remember all of that. And it just kind of went sideways. Then we had the election. And, the election, there's stories in these charts. When we had the election, there was a lot of people optimistic that we're going to have our first, Bitcoin crypto-centric administration. Started before Nashville, basically right around here. And we started to see this kind of uptick in price and social mentions. We had the election day, Trump wins. We kind of said, yes, it's all bullish, it's all bullish. And since then, we've had a lot of uncertainty, right? Like this is measuring macro trends, not, individual opinions like maybe a lot of the altcoins do. And so when we see what's happened since, the election and since Trump came into office, we've seen this uncertainty, and now we're kind of down here. If you zoom way out, you see like right here, 95,000 mentions. Well, we had 95,000 mentions roughly in here, October 24th, 2023. So we're way back here in terms of social activity. So we've stepped back. It's interesting because when you look at, say, Ethereum, this is just like, this is ugly. It's ugly. We've gone nowhere with social activity. Price is down 45% over the last year. But when we look at what's happening at the same time that we're seeing these lines kind of sit still in terms of the number of mentions? Well, there's other things that are going on. So, you look at like, well, lots of activity around tariffs. And that just keeps going up. In fact, if you look at just the number of unique people talking about it, even, or the engagement around these posts, it just keeps moving up. Same thing with trade wars. And so you see these kinds of negative things, and name your negative term out there. You see these kinds of trends. And so I think it's just interesting when you look especially at Bitcoin and you're looking at more like macro narratives that people are talking about. They're not talking about the latest utility of Bitcoin and all these social posts and the fall release of this deployment. This is measuring global kind of thoughts. And so when we think about that, and when we think about these sort of negative events occurring, we get uncertainty. We get people questioning where to place their bets. And it feels like, yes, it does feel very bottom-like. And today's move is probably the strongest move we've seen in price in a while. You certainly feel it. But there's also something else happening. And, last week, I'm going to pull up GameStop here. Last week, I remember saying that one of the bigger trends in the stock market that we see was that there was a lot more interest in these Bitcoin-centric stocks. And so fascinating. I think, what was it? Were we on last Wednesday, I think? The end of day Wednesday, GameStop announced that they can buy Bitcoin, and their board had approved that. And so we're starting to see increased activity in GameStop. Last week, it was the most mentioned social stock. But again, you look at where we're at. This is not impressive. We're still way down here. This was the day that they had announced that they were going to be buying Bitcoin. We have yet to hear them actually buy Bitcoin. We have yet to hear, say, Roaring Kitty even post anything about GameStop. But we're starting to see interest, and yes, activity is down. Activity across the entire stock market is down. And so GameStop's really kind of interesting. Strategy also, you can see, kind of looks a lot like Bitcoin, doesn't it? We get this interest, price moving up, everyone talking about it, and we sort of see it wane. And right around in here, and as bad as this looks, a lot of altcoins look a whole lot worse. But we're sort of in this bottom-like place where they're, despite all the crazy Bitcoin buys that Saylor's been doing with strategy, we're in the same place as a year ago as far as social activity goes. It's come back, but it sure looks very bottom-like. It sure looks like the bare bones of individuals are.
Why do you think sentiment is so bad? Why do you think sentiment is like that, John?
People don't like uncertainty, and I think a lot of people have lost money. A lot of people that get euphoric in these kinds of phases, and they end up buying at 473.83, and they're sitting here worried about it, and they don't brag. They don't want to talk about the great investment that they made at $473 when it hasn't gotten anywhere near it. They're waiting to get their money back. You'll start to see, as this goes up, people will start to talk about it more. And typically, I'd say, like, it's hard to see on a longer term time frame, but you'll see social activity and the number of people start to talk about it. And when we see that, that's when we would say, okay, it's starting to look more like a confirmed bottom. But I think a lot of it has to do with people like to talk on the way up how smart they are. There's a lot of that. So, and we're also seeing, like, just to pull this up, like Mara, which we're starting to see the number of people talking about Mara moving up. So we've kind of done this thing, and look, it moves right along. This is the number of unique people posting every day versus the number of mentions would be how many posts they make, versus the number of engagements would be how engaged are people with those posts. They all kind of follow this very similar trajectory. And again, we're starting to see this creep up a little bit. So I think, to pull up one thing in here, I have stocks up here. This is just I'm going to close this. When we look at just the number of mentions on a stock, like this is just 24-hour. See, GameStop's number 4, pretty damn insane. We're talking about a $10 billion stock versus these guys that are in the trillions. And then here we got Strategy. We got MSTR here, the 9th most mentioned stock. I'm sure we could keep going. There's Robinhood, there's Coinbase, there's Mara. You know, you start to see some of these things in here that are that weren't here. And so I think it's really interesting to see. And I think when we start to look at like this is the interesting one, because GameStop is the most socially correlated stock that we've ever seen. So, and for many, many reasons. So, but it's going to be really interesting as this converts into a Bitcoin company. This has not been a narrative. It's been a hope. It hasn't been a narrative.
Can you go back to the Bitcoin one real quick? Because I just want to point out something on this chart. Like, I wish you would have shown me this chart, I don't know, beginning of April or beginning of February, it looks like, mid-February, that it just fucking, the social activity just fell off a cliff. What the hell happened there?
Right.
And then, you know, it certainly, like, the social activity was dead for, what is that, a month and a half? The whole month of February.
And
right?
to be clear, we changed to
Before
zero right
the
here.
price followed.
This is exactly the same, everything from our end. Nothing has changed this entire frame. So like, it's fascinating to see people sort of, I mean, what changed here was the election, was Trump coming into office, and uncertainty and what's happening next, and maybe a little bit of euphoric kind of thinking over here. Everyone, you know, immediately saying US is going to buy 1 million Bitcoin. Oh wait, it's not going to happen right now. It's not going to happen immediately. It's wait, what's happening? It's back and forth, right? So like, there's a lot of uncertainty. And again, I come back to narratives like this, like to tariffs and trade wars, and I come back to that when you start to see that activity move up, and I see this kind of flattened. Very interesting. Also very interesting to not see this flatten further. So we're sort of at this really interesting flat base here. So the next few weeks are going to be very interesting to watch here for sure.
So what would be interesting is really to compare other bottoms and how the social, you know, what was the social kind of behavior was at those bottoms. I think that could give us a clue as to, you know, what leads what and how. But as you could see, the whole environment is risk off. I mean, look at the NASDAQ, the whole tech sector has gotten wrecked. And even like stories like AI, I don't know if you noticed, but even with everything OpenAI is doing and Anthropic, nobody really cares at this point. And NVIDIA, I mean, look at NVIDIA. They had this whole conference and the CEO came out and painted this bright story about robotics and all that. And guess what? NVIDIA got sold off right into, as the event was occurring, NVIDIA stock was tanking. And it's actually below today than it was during the conference. So I think it's just the overall climate is just very risk off. Bitcoin is just part of that, I think, part of that negative climate.
It's interesting. We've got, you know, we really are more of an API business than we are lunarrush.com at this point. And we've got a lot of very large, some of the largest financial firms using our API to do exactly what you asked earlier. Is like, it'd be really interesting to see, well, what did it look like when the last bottom occurred? And so there's a lot of activity around that, a lot of different financial firms using our API to do that. And really like trading, some of them are trading across 13 different stock markets around the world. Yeah. So they're using the social data to do that. And there's a lot of really interesting things happening, especially because of things like tariffs. And there's wide gaps in opportunity that open up and close constantly.
But we've got,
if you can detect patterns of what, what are the leading indicators and then what leads price, you know, and that could give a really good clue as to, you know, what's happening with the prices are going to go lower or higher depending what's happening in the social sphere.
So that's, I mean, we, in a sense, we track that. We've got alt rank, that's what we call it, which is combined social and market strength relative to the whole market. And we do it for stocks too. But like, you know, you start to see these kinds of things like SUI and, you know, Sonic really standing out. Like you start to see, I mean, it changes constantly, but you start to see like, yeah, neat that mentions are up, but is market activity moving too? And you start to see like, are people putting their mouth where their money is, and money where their mouth is, and you start to see these kinds of patterns over time. And a lot of times you end up seeing a lot, like way more often than not, you see social activity move well before price and well before trading volume. There's a lot of things that happen where there's sort of a delay in activity. There's a lot of reasons for that, especially in crypto, whether it's transferring funds to where you can buy an asset, or there's a gap because social moves in real time and things happen in real time. You might have not been even watching your screen when something happened. So we tend to see that big announcements happen, especially on altcoins with lower to mid-sized market caps, then market activity moves. So pretty interesting.
And speaking about attention economy, guys, amongst all the altcoins that I'm tracking, like AI16Z, it's up over 20% today. So I guess it begs the question, and I was looking into some interesting AI agent projects. I posted it on my Twitter and on the Quantum Alpha group. For the guys that are not there yet, you should be. This project that we got to know on the Tel Aviv Building Blocks event, project called Edwin. And I think there's so AI16Z is really right now acting kind of like the leader of the whole AI agent narrative, which was already declared dead after an amazing, mind-blowing 2-month kind of run. And it begs the question, like, was it run like the preview for AI agents, even though probably 99.9% of the AI agents that were just basically Twitter bots with a coin attached to them will not come back? Those fundamental projects that allow for agentic behavior that can, do automated DeFi operations for you. Speaking about Cora as well, are we going to see a renewed kind of interest and impact on the whole AI agent narrative? Because according to what I'm seeing in the chart, like this might be some renewed interest, and we may just see a new leg on the whole AI agent narrative. What do you guys think?
I think
So
you will for sure.
The AI coins, AI agent coins that I bought, I haven't sold. I have them in hands. It's a problem. When I buy coins, I don't like to let go of them, and I'm fully prepared to ride them to zero if necessary.
Poor
Uh,
Alice, I think she's down like 90%.
you
Yeah,
know
but I
what?
think you need to
No,
distinguish.
Alice is not down 90%. That's not correct. But even AI 16Z it had a pump today. It's up 20% today. And so I think that it's possible for them to see another wind, but I think that investors are going to be smarter going forward.
Yeah.
And I believe that the meme coin phase of the market is over. I mean, yes, there's meme coins, and yes, some of them will have value, but that phase where everybody's chasing the meme coins, I think, has kind of been played out already.
Mhm.
I love Dogecoin. I trade actively on Dogecoin. I hold Dogecoin. I've been in Dogecoin since like 2014. So Dogecoin is obviously the original meme coin. I think Pepe also has promise, but I think that most of the rest of them are just going to kind of fade into the background
Yeah.
as what's going to be important in the future is real utility, and tokens that actually do stuff, that actually like people have put out amazing products, and those products are using sound tokenomics. I believe that is kind of like going to be the future of the altcoin market, and there are plenty of those, and there are plenty of them that are doing quite well. Even if Ethereum itself, the original of that, is tanking because they haven't been doing so well.
Mhm.
And everybody thought, well, Ethereum is like the backbone of that part of the economy, and that just fell apart. I don't know about you guys. I haven't used Ethereum for anything meaningful in years. Whereas, been using a lot more Solana, for example, even I've probably used Avalanche more than I've used Ethereum, to be perfectly
What?
straight. So that I think that it's not like an on-off switch, but there's a broad spectrum of this market. And I think that the ones that are going to be useful and the ones that have managed to retain a community, the ones that have sound economic principles, and a growing product, I think those are going to be the ones that'll win out. Whereas, if that's an AI agent, as long as that AI agent is providing value, and as long as the token feeds back and the value feeds into that token, I think they'll be just fine. If it's an AI agent that just knows how to fuck around on Twitter and have a potty mouth, and the tokenomics behind the token are not astounding, then no, I don't think that's going to have any kind of second wind or any kind of wind. I think it's gonna fall apart as it should. That's what investing
But
is about.
also,
We
but also I
choose
think
are the kingmakers.
yeah, but also I think we got to look at, like differentiate tokens and AI agents. Now they can be combined together, but I think the promise of agentic and AI is really about automation and utility, like Mahdi said. So that really comes first. So if you have an agent, but it doesn't really do anything useful, attaching token to it, I think that model is pretty much dead in my view. Like, why would you want to own a token like that? But essentially, I think the focus of agentic is going to be about all automation. It's about having agents do things automatically for you and scaling you out. Like that's the kind of, my project Scalar X is kind of, that's what it's all about, is really automation. So I think that's the next leg of agentic promise. I think the token is just an ability to then tokenize the economy, whether that's an agent economy or attention or whatever, but the utility and automation has to come first. I just don't see why, and that's why the whole meme craze didn't really make sense to me, even when it was all going, because I knew it was going to kind of collapse. Because what is the point of these tokens? So that's why I think agentic is going to come back, and once the tariffs and all of that thing is going to go away, I think the focus is going to be back on growth and the new business models, and AI is going to be in robotics. I think AI plus physical AI robotics is really going to be the next leg up, and agentic is just all about automation. That's kind of my view of how it's all going to play out.
But how can we capitalize on robots other than maybe investing in Tesla for their robot series?
You got to go private companies if you can get in on some deals on buying private companies that are in robotics, like Figure 8 and there's a few others. Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Is how do you capitalize on?
Well, that's how we do crypto, man, because we don't have an entry into private companies at a prime valuation before they start.
I think, well, you could now actually. There are some websites, I forget which, that allow you to buy some of these companies in a secondary market. So you can actually go buy shares. In fact, one of my friends did that. He bought some shares of Anthropic. So there are some secondary marketplaces
or WeFunder, for example, not to plug any.
There's places
that's
to do
the only
that.
way I've seen. I'm doing a bit of quantum expedition through the WeFunder page. But
build your own robotics company if you can.
Yeah, and guys, remember, this is like the magic of crypto. Yes, 99.9% of all these projects are obviously like a grift, but that 0.1% that become the ubiquitous oracles of the world, like Chainlink, or become
you just don't know who they are. You just don't know what they are, right?
That's the problem. You don't know, but by the time they start becoming like really well adopted, and you start seeing in the top 200 like market cap, you can become a part of it and still be pretty early. I mean, I do still have a fundamental belief in the promise of altcoins, but the problem is that so far we have not yet seen them outperform on other than a very, very few seldom exceptions, like Solana and other coins that have come back after the huge run up. So other than speculative purposes, we haven't yet seen them thrive, but I do believe their time is coming sometime
I
this
think
year.
robotics is going to unlock the value of some of these crypto projects because technically speaking, robots can't open bank accounts. So I think when you talk about robotics and AI,
Mhm.
that's where I think the use case for crypto starts to really make sense, right? Because
I'm
if
pretty
you
sure
have
that
robots and
robots are going to
monetizing
use a
robots,
wallet.
that would be perfect for crypto blockchain.
It feels
Yeah,
like
Robots
the
exactly.
are for
value
sure.
it feels to me like value is unlocked when we stop talking about crypto. When we're just talking about our lives,
Right.
about the things that we're doing. It was my birthday last week, and I went wine tasting
Happy
over the
birthday.
weekend. Thank you,
Happy
thank you.
birthday.
I met multiple people that one was a winemaker that was building a verification technology for their wine. It's expensive wine, and they want to make sure that it's not counterfeit, and also looking at blockchain and crypto for managing membership and access and events. And like it was fun having these conversations, but it was like ultimately it turns into like and then an 87-year-old person walks in the door that's a wine club member. They don't know what the hell we're talking about. They know their wine. And so like and the building that it's in, if that was on chain, it would still just be a building. You don't need to talk about which blockchain it's on and how fast it is and how secure it is. It would just be a building. And I think until we stop talking crypto, we scare the shit out of everyone. Like, it's intimidating, and most people are barely even at the level of understanding Bitcoin. I mean, all of us we're here. We're embedded in this, and I think it all makes sense to have these conversations. You go to conferences. You could go to another conference and another conference and another conference. It's literally the same stuff that they're talking about to the same people. And I feel like this industry's done itself a disservice by building yet another DeFi protocol, yet building another DEX, building another of the same damn thing. Like
Yeah.
we need to be more imaginative and think outside the box and solve real problems. Like for example, if someone were to build a wine verification, what's that access point look like? Are they downloading something? Do they need a wallet? Is it like what exactly is it that gets all of these people to use these things? Because like let's be honest, there's still no killer app. Maybe Bitcoin's the killer app so far. Like there's still,
You can
after
argue
all of this,
there are a few projects that have reached some kind of product market fit. I would argue like Poly Markets, the prediction market on Polygon, that
yep.
has been mentioned in the mainstream news without a single mention of crypto or the coins. It's like this is what Poly Markets think about this, what the prediction markets, decentralized prediction markets are thinking about this outcome. Particularly coming to the elections, we saw that being used in the mainstream news without a single mention of crypto, the coin, or if the price is going up or down. Now, I do think those are early signs of some kind of product market fit, but I do agree with you, John, that the adoption will come when we start thinking about what is a problem that we're solving from the everyday user that is going to use this product, and not anything related with is if the coin going up or down. That's for sure.
Well,
I
what
love your
about
example.
tokenizing real world assets? I mean, that was and again, this is like you were talking about, whether it's wine or real estate or like, look, I had like if you own, let's say, a Rolex watch, right? Or any of these like luxury items, authentication of whether that's real or not. I mean, there's just so many, I think, use cases. I think some of them have more friction in the real world, like, and I'm talking about from regulatory and state, and depending on where you are, and maybe some don't. But I think you're right, John, to kind of point it out. I think just trading tokens back and forth, it just goes so far, right? And I think it's just at some point, it's just yet another wave, whether it's NFTs, whether that's, I don't know, some other tokens or AI tokens or whatever. But at some point, you got to solve some real problems. And I think maybe tokenizing real world assets, I think maybe is one of those. And I think robotics is another, because I just don't think robots plus blockchain, I think that's the real use case.
I really love the Polymarket example from the standpoint of they have more people talking about Polymarket than Polygon. Think about that for a second. Polygon
It's
has
true.
gone to the nth degree all around the world doing conferences and hackathons and builder events and attending every conference with a booth and got Sandeep on stage and got all this stuff going on. And one app that happened to use their technology has more adoption, mainstream.
But that's coming,
So
John. Like
fascinating.
think about
Yeah.
think about there's this game called Off the Grid that
Yeah.
it's got all the Twitch streamers going on.
Mhm.
Like if that's running on Avalanche, then Avalanche's gonna get a huge ton of usage only from that single game that gets adopted. And I think if you're building a layer one, and this is for the Web3 builders out there that will be happy to help you out, Matty and myself, in quantum consulting. If you are building a layer one protocol that depends on those killer apps getting adopted to actually make a case for and grow your ecosystem, then it is worth it to pull out all the stops and make the proper investments, make it as easy as possible to both integrate, develop, operate, and transact on that layer one, only to get those kinds of apps like embedded into your ecosystem. I mean, I can give you a lot of examples of ecosystems that are surviving through the bulls and bears based on those type of applications, and their users don't even know that they're using blockchain. Like there's a game called how's it, Upland. It's a mobile game where you like buy property, and it's like a virtual real estate game. Like they're built on EOS, right? And they have millions of users. Not a single user probably owns EOS or knows what EOS even is. But that's the app that registers the most transactions on chain, and it keeps the ecosystem alive because the block producers say, no, we got to keep this app running. It's what's keeping the blocks populated. It's what's keeping the chain running. And one by one, those apps being adopted and being run on chain, eventually we're gonna get to that killer app where we can really say to those big behemoths of Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple, is to say like, what's up? Here's a decentralized app store, and it's getting a ton of downloads. Here's a decentralized Azure, and it's getting quite used. Here's a decentralized AI compute processing power that's giving it's giving NVIDIA a run for its money. I think it's coming, guys.
We're getting close on wrapping this thing up. We got one last question I want to get to, and we'll transition to our segment on DPIN and RWA. Don't have the audio. We lost the audio on that. Boy,
No, I lost the audio, but I got the.
You got the gist of it. So the question. Sorry, I'm not sure what happened with the audio there. Again, I'm having some issues here. The most promising projects you're looking at in the RWA DeFi. I want to earn passive income via staking. Let's kick this one around the room. Hernan, you're up first. We'll give it to you, and then we'll go to Monty Greenspan, John, and then Scalar.
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick, guys. If there's an RWA project that I'd like to mention, I always love the underdog. So everyone knows Ondo and the popular kind of RWA projects. I would definitely suggest you guys take a look at Chintai. The token is CHEX checks. I know them for a long time because they also started building on EOS. They based on Singapore, but they're coming to the US. Very cool project. They have all the regulations nailed down. They've been working on this for years, so it's not like a coming up project that are just tokenizing stuff. And on the part of DeFi, I'm always very bullish on Cora and the AI agent that can automate your DeFi operations. So definitely go take a look and join us on our Discord, on Telegram. Check out what we're building, and once the mobile app it's on the App Store, you can right now test it on the beta Tesla, but very exciting things are coming for it. And I do believe that there are going to be a ton of opportunities. Now, guys, when you're talking about passive income, you have to understand that there is seldom good opportunities of earning passive income. Even if you're just parking your money somewhere, you're going to have to do your research and understand what are the downside risks, what are the risk potentials of that platform going down. Like, even if we all thought that we were earning 20% yield on our dollars parking it in Anchor on UST protocol on Luna, and look how that ended, right? You weren't ended 20% a year, you were ending
You
a
were the
minus.
yield.
Yeah, you were earning a minus 100% on your money in a couple of hours. So definitely don't buy this passive income. Just park my money somewhere and live for free. Crypto is a very active space, and you have to be aware, active, and vigilant of your assets at all times. So I'll wrap it up with that.
Good answer, John.
About real world asset opportunities, yeah, I have a very similar answer around, be careful with passive income. I mean, if there's some of these protocols will say, hey, you can stake and earn 10% on your money and all that. I go, 10%? Did we really get into the space for 10% and to lock it up for a period of time where it's like, oh, you unstake it and you have to wait 15 days, 30 days, whatever it is. Like, it just, that's tough. That's a very tough thing to handle. That being said, if there are opportunities out there, great. Take a very strong look at them. If we're talking about RWA, I think this is, I've said it here before. I think this is is probably the best space to take a look at long term, because for one, even though there's been a downturn, we've still seen a lot of interest in this space. I think that, like, you have to look at, well, what are the likely bets in RWA? Because there are millions. There are literally millions of possible outputs here. I think you should look at things like that already have a lot of friction, like tokenized stocks. Stock market closes Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, minus national holidays, minus banker holidays. That's literally ridiculous that it's 2025 and we can't trade 24/7, 365. It's actually some kind of, I can't even believe, if you would have asked me 10, 15 years ago that would we still be trading on those hours today, I would have probably placed my money saying, no, we'll be trading always now.
What about daylight savings time? Are you betting
so I would,
against that one?
oh my gosh, can we stop that one too?
Please.
I think you have to look at what is actually likely to build the tokenized version of the stock market out. I think you have to look at things like Ondo. You have to look at things like Injective is doing some interesting things. There's also a lot in this entire space. I know there's so many things, but I think you have to look at, well, what's the base layer of it? We see a lot of activity around like Algorand. They're really making big bets in this space. And if you think about things like real estate, which is also another fairly safe, guaranteed bet that something's going to happen in this space some way. However, it's not so simple. Like, someone can just build a token and an app and your house is now tokenized. Like, we had a live stream with Prop Chain, which is also in this space not long ago. And they were talking about all of their hurdles that they have to jump through in all of the different markets. Easy to do in Dubai, impossible in Canada, right? So like, can't do it in the US. And then it gets into, well, what chain is it built on? Well, things like Algorand are US centric. I think they're from Boston. So like you get, you get these things, Avalanche out of Brooklyn. Like, you get these things that are more likely to be built on in a specific market. But I think real estate is probably the most interesting piece of this entire puzzle. And to the extent that I think it may be the next biggest opportunity in crypto. In some regard, again, it's not going to be fast. It's going to be slow, boring, and based on different laws changing in different regions in the world. There's probably room for a ton of players in this space in some way, but fascinating. I think I would look at real estate, I would look at tokenized stocks, and I would look at the chains they're built on if we're talking about the space. And I'd be really also leery of passive income on this space because it's so experimental. A lot of these things will fail.
Albert, Scalar X, RWA DeFi,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything's been said. I mean, I don't have any specific project to recommend. The way I look at it, and again, it was mentioned that passive income. I know everybody wants, income without really doing much. I look at it, what is the risk-free return? And you look at let's say United States Treasury. So let's just say it pays like what, 4%. To me, when I look at, passive income, I look at, well, who is offering me more than, let's just say, risk-free return, or so-called risk-free return, even though there risk as well. And you always have to think about, well, where is that other premium coming from? So no matter what it is, whether that's crypto project or something else in general, I always try to figure out, well, if it's over that percentage, where is that risk coming from? Like, how is it actually harvested, right? And I think you just in crypto projects, a lot of it is opaque, and you actually don't know where it's coming from, and you kind of become the yield. So, and again, I would be very skeptical of anybody who's promising me crazy returns. I always look into like how exactly is this return generated. Um, but I think a lot of it's been said already. I mean, opportunities. I think RWA, and again, I mentioned one, robotics. Even though robots are not here, I think once robotics comes into place, and again, I'm being optimistic that Optimus from Tesla is going to be here, whether that's this year or next year. But let's just say, Musk is usually over promises. So let's just say not this year, but I think next year you have robots coming from, China. There's going to be US made robots and from other places. I just don't see, how crypto is not going to be adopted by this industry, robotics, because that's the only way they can exchange value.
Yeah.
So to me, it seems like explosion in robots will lead to an explosion in crypto or adoption of crypto. That's kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, not only how the robots and all the AI will transact is going to be on chain, but also how are we going to verify uniqueness, source of funds, verifiability,
Identity.
like all those
Yep.
things. Yeah, identity, all those things that require like some kind of cryptographic proof or some kind of one-sided signature. I think all that's going to be integrated into this new
Right.
fabric of our digital life in some way, shape, or form. How that's going to look at the end. Well, we'll see. I bought my Solana phone like a year and a half ago and hasn't arrived, so I cannot sign in on that promise. But I guess it's coming.
Well, you
Sometime.
got to look at like how long did it take for AI to really come to fruition? I mean, AI's been people have been working on AI for a very, very long time. And it hasn't
My
been until the
thesis
chat
on
GPT
the
moment where AI suddenly became kind of like everybody suddenly said, well, look at this AI finally delivered on something. Because before it was just
I,
it was just a hype and a lot of promise, and a lot of people actually gave up on it.
I graduated from computing engineering back in 2003. My thesis was named an music sequencing system based on artificial intelligence, and I presented to my like the assessors, like the council of the university, and the guy who was supposed to be my counselor, he told me, listen, this AI thing, it's like it's not really intelligence, it's like a bunch of like if analysis, and it's not really no, it's not really smart. And then I kind of left it alone. That was what, 22 years ago? And look at where we are now. So yes, it took AI around 25 to 30 years to have this chat GPT moment.
Marty Greenspan, we'll give you the final word as we put this conversation and live stream to rest. What are the most promising projects you are looking at in RWA, DeFi, passive income? Close us out and answer that as we finish asking the advisor.
Absolutely. No, that's a great question from Modern Solutions. And thanks to everybody for watching today. Over 15,000 people across 5 platforms. Major accomplishment. Yeah, I spoke this morning with, John mentioned the tokenizing stocks. I spoke with a gentleman this morning who's actually doing that and doing it in a trustless way. I thought quite interesting. to open that market up and kind of build a bridge into traditional stocks. I think that real estate is going to be huge. There's so much value that can be unlocked by tokenizing real estate. We've been talking about this for years. But I do think that we're still early to ask that question. I think that, we're not in a place yet where you could think of it as passive income, as many have mentioned here. Everything that you're going to invest in today is highly speculative. However, I do think that we're going to get there within the next year or so, especially under Trump and the deregulation and Operation Choke Point 2.0 being behind us. We'll get some very real guidelines from the SEC about what's allowed, what's not allowed, which could be used as a blueprint for the rest of the world to follow. So I do think that we're going there very, very fast. And I am biting my tongue on one specific project that I unfortunately cannot disclose yet. It's still in the very early stages of research within quantum economics, where we do have an asset that is absolutely ripe for passive income. People have been using it for passive income. The problem is that the barrier to entry is very, very high, with people having to really know the industry very well, and in addition to having a very large investment in order, minimum investment. And I think that absolutely we can. I mean, that within the okay, so we have somebody who's doing this in the traditional finance world, and they've talked about many times, like kind of opening it up to the masses, but the paperwork that would be needed in order to do that was just too staggering. But we can do it on chain, and it's really beautiful. And we'll be announcing that in due course, should it come to fruition. But yeah, I think that we're early, and then obviously we have Quora coming, where you'll be able to ask exactly that question, and the AI will be able to answer it for you, bringing up real examples using real-time data from Lunar Crush, which, by the way, John, I've got to show you the latest version of Quora touting Lunar Crush data. It is it's pretty awesome. Thank you for that.
Yep. All right. So we will reconvene this conversation on Thursday on X Spaces, exclusively on X. Monty Greenspan. We're going back to the audio format, and we are going to be doing a giveaway, free swag from Quantum Expeditions on that Thursday space. That will be 9 a.m. Pacific, if I'm not mistaken, noon Eastern.
Yeah, same time as this one started.
Yep. So that's Thursday morning, 9 a.m. on the West, noon Eastern, for the Quantum Space and your chance to win the free Quantum Expeditions swag and giveaway. And we are going to be working on another new project as well. We'll probably give you more details about that in the Thursday space. But other than that, thank you for making time to be here, Albert, Scalar X. Always great to see you and have you weigh in on the conversation. John, a pleasure. The data that you bring, amazing, great insights. Hernan, you are always so dynamic and so powerful, and you bring the charts and you unpack it and you really help.
I bring the vibe.
You
man.
do. You bring the vibe, but you also bring the charts and the analysis, and you help answer questions and give folks some of those insights that they need. And we couldn't do it without you, Mr. Greenspan, the CEO and the founder, the big brain behind it all, Quantum Economics and Quantum Expeditions. Final word, sir.
All right, let's reveal Satoshi Nakamoto's true identity. I promised I'd do it today.
Yes.
And
are you sure Bitcoin's right now kind of breaking that 85 resistance, Maddie? It's about to pump. I'm not sure you want to do that right
so
now.
I've given this a lot of thought, okay, and not just about the poll that I put on Twitter with an overwhelming majority of people saying yes, do reveal. I think that it's important that that it took this long to reveal it, because the aura of mystery around the creator of Bitcoin has been a huge contributor to Bitcoin's success. And I think that actually, as I'll reveal today, the timeline surrounding his disappearance is actually quite fortuitous for the network. I think it happened in the exact right time. Had it happened, a few years earlier, Bitcoin never would have been born. Had it happened a few years later, we would have run the risk of something getting really fucked up. But actually, it was something that was timed, couldn't have been timed better from, and was certainly not planned. And also, I want to say that anybody who's done more than 100 hours of research on the identity of Satoshi Nakamoto already knows the answer within themselves. I would venture to guess that out of the 5 people that we have on the panel, I think that each person, we'll go in line from the 4 of you. I'm going to say, give me a name. And I think that it'll probably be the same person. So you want to try that experiment? Okay, on the count of 3, say who you think Satoshi Nakamoto is. Albert, John, Hernan, and Matt. 1, 2, 3.
Hal Finney.
Thank you.
Hal Finney,
Thank
yeah,
you.
I was thinking Hal
Thank
Finney
you.
too.
Okay, this is the answer that
I have
I've
no
got
idea.
to, and I believe in it 100%. I don't think that it could be anybody else. ChatGPT, who's Satoshi Nakamoto? Background. Who are the top candidates? Number 1, Hal Finney. Number 2, Nick Szabo. Adam Back. I met Adam Back. He's a really chill dude. Doesn't seem to be it. Dorian Nakamoto. Craig Wright weaseled his way onto this fucking list. Wei Dai, and then a collective like a cypherpunk group. So let's go down. Using all available knowledge, who is the most likely of the above candidates? Hal Finney. Here is a hot list. I'm going to share this out in my Quantum Economics newsletter. So go ahead and subscribe at QE.finance for the free newsletter. I will put all of this data in there for you. The cases against, very, very few and far between. He explicitly denied being Satoshi. Yeah, right, obviously. The writing is not a perfect match, but neither do anyone else's. Actually, we'll go into the writing. There's a rabbit hole about the writing style, and he is, as it seems, the closest match. And then here, so here we go. Actually, ChatGPT was able to put this graph out for us of, okay, who has the technical acumen, the ideological fit, the early involvement, writing match, community score, and then average score. And then we can see, I don't know, maybe we're blocking here with the screens.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, Hal Finney on the right here, average score, the black line, just quite largely above everybody else from all aspects. Nick Szabo is a close contender. His community belief does not quite match up with the creator of Bitcoin. Okay. However, the writing match is there. So Nick Szabo also a close contender. However, when you put it to ChatGPT and say, if you would put a percentage likelihood of Satoshi being Hal Finney, ChatGPT gives it a 60 to 70% chance. Now, that's not a smoking gun. And obviously, it's not 100% sure, and will never be 100% sure. I'm quite certain because of this chart, right? We can see what are the percentage likelihood, and Nick Szabo, 15 to 20% is a close runner-up. However, when you compare 60% to 20% or 70% to 20%, there is no contest. You can see the Pac-Man graph. Hal Finney with a huge win over here. Dorian and Nakamoto, Dorian and Craig Wright sharing 1% over here, just barely. It's no contest in my mind. Okay. The facts on the ground are pretty clear. Hal Finney was the recipient of the first ever Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi Nakamoto. Do you think that Satoshi Nakamoto would have sent a Bitcoin transaction, the first Bitcoin transaction, to anybody but himself? Let's just say that. Hal Finney was the first one to tweet about Bitcoin, so the first one to bring it to the public sphere with that famous tweet that said "running Bitcoin." And Hal Finney also famously received that Bitcoin, did not do much with it. Okay, so actually, we can go into that transaction and check out this. Check out the history between the two of them. I did have some further research here about how it lined up with his disease, and I think that got messed up from ChatGPT. I don't know where that went. However, can you review the timeline of Hal's disease and Satoshi's public posts. Okay, and we can see the timeline matches up very distinctly. August of 2009, Hal Finney was diagnosed with ALS, which is a cognitive degenerative disease. And basically, what happened is, and so he put out Bitcoin in 2000 at the end of 2009, or just about the end of 2009, and then his disease started to take over, and we saw until around this time, December 12th, 2010, the posts from Satoshi Nakamoto getting increasingly brief and to the point, where he starts delegating. I had a much better version of this. I'm going to have to reproduce it for the newsletter, but to the point where everything after 2010, or by the end of 2009, early 2010, by the end of 2010, his posts are getting very delegative. So he's doing only critical functions. Even the words that he's writing, which for somebody with ALS, as they progress, it gets harder and harder just to type. And by the end, he was using an eye scan thing. The technology wasn't there. We didn't have Neuralink yet to plug into his brain, and therefore just typing became very, very brief. And then obviously the final post, final known email coming in April 23rd, 2011, stating that he'd moved on to other things. That email, if you look at it, is very brief in nature. And so is basically, if you look at it on a timeline, Satoshi, very vibrant, and this would have lined up extremely well with Hal Finney's degenerative ALS disease. And this is why I am quite certain, beyond a shadow of a doubt in my mind, if you ask me who Satoshi Nakamoto was, it is Hal Finney. Obviously, you cannot prove this in a court of law. The man was a very, very skilled programmer. He knew how to hide his identity very well. And therefore, we will never be 100% certain in a provable fashion. However, to me, it's just very clear, and there's no other contender that comes even close. And the fact that you guys already knew this tells me that I have not revealed anything that was not already known to people who wanted to know. But I think that what happens for most Bitcoiners at some point when they figure it out, say, maybe I'll just keep my mouth shut. Maybe why would I ruin the surprise for everybody? But I think the time's come, and I think that we can now safely bury this, and we can say, cheers to you, Hal. Thank you very much for everything that you've contributed to the world and to humankind. You've brought us leaps and bounds forward as a species.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Very well said. And also on a practical level, we don't want to have a live Satoshi Nakamoto that we can interview and get tempted to move his Bitcoin around. So that also lines up.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. On that note, thank you again for coming through, John, Albert, Hernan, Marty Greenspan. Appreciate you taking the time to host this thing and do the live stream every week, the insight and the analysis. The newsletter is always free. QE Finance, right? .io. Is it QEfinance.io?
No, it's QE.finance.
QE.finance. That's right. It's the new website, the new website. On that note, like we say, stay safe, stack sats, and hodl.
A lot of people in sort of pop culture thinking that this could be the end.
Yeah, so the dip that you're talking about is actually nothing new for Bitcoin. As far as percentage terms go, if we look at it historically, we've seen these types of pullbacks before.